Good morning. Welcome to this recorded sermon for Sunday, October 26th, 2025. My name is Bob Malone, and I'm the pastor here at Mount Vernon Presbyterian Church in Alexandria, Virginia. On behalf of our entire church family, welcome. We hope you, as always, encounter God in very rich and meaningful ways as you listen to this morning's sermon. Today I am continuing a four-part sermon series on the stages of life and faith. We are looking at part 3 today. And as always, I invite you to get comfortable wherever you are and begin to pay attention to that still small voice within inside of you. Listen now for all that God is saying. From 1 Corinthians 13, if I speak in the tongues of humans and angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. Love does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. But as for prophecies, they will come to an end. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it too will come to an end. For we know only in part, and we prophesy only in part. But when the complete comes, the partial will come to an end. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. But when I became an adult, I put an end to childish ways. For now we see only a reflection, as in a mirror. But then we will see face to face. Now I know only in part. Then I will know fully, even as I have been fully known. And now faith, hope, and love remain, these three. But the greatest of these is love. This morning's opening hymn, When We Gather in Worship, is one of my favorite. Gather us in. I so fully believe in the lyrics to that hymn. Here in this place, new light really is streaming. And that reality should prompt all of us to approach the mystery of each sunrise with great hope, joy, and positivity. Each new dawn reminds us that our journeys continue. And so we attempt to put yesterday behind us and welcome another new day to travel this road called life and enjoy this adventure called faith. Now, in case you've missed the last two sermons, as a brief recap, there are stages to these journeys that we are on, these adventures. The first two stages of life that we've considered over the past 2 weeks are childhood and young adulthood. And the first two stages of faith that we've looked at are the ritualistic stage and the relational stage. Now, I've linked each of our stages to the music of Amy Grant. And the song for the first stage was Fat Baby, a song about always seeking to grow and mature in our walks with God. And the song for the second stage was Don't Try So Hard. And it was all about learning to give ourselves a little bit of grace. You see, we all need to learn to live in this tension and find the appropriate balance between trying to grow and mature and, while at the same time, learning not to be too hard on ourselves. This morning, we're going to consider the third stage of life and faith. And while this third stage of life is really unavoidable for most of us, namely midlife, the third stage of faith is one that sadly many people never see. And I have termed it the reflective stage of faith. Now I'm putting the third stage of faith together with the third stage of life because for some, the reflections that come with this third stage of faith may occur somewhere in midlife. But for some, maybe even for many, it begins much earlier. It all really depends on how you define midlife, right? What you believe those years to be. I still often find myself thinking that I'm in the middle of my life. And that's really only the case if I'm going to live to be 128 years old. It's also really hard to link a specific age with the various stages of faith. Because unlike the stages of life, there is no set timetable for the stages of faith. We're all on different journeys, at different places and at different times. Spiritually, we all grow and develop at different rates, likely because spiritual growth, well, it's determined by our individual life experiences. And again, those are all different. Further, while it's not really possible to stop our bodies from growing and aging, that is not the case with faith, which is why I'm preaching this sermon series to begin with. Because we can impact our faith development. And without in any way wanting to minimize the role of the Spirit, we can and often do determine whether or not we are growing, whether or not we are going to grow. We have a role in deciding whether or not, as this morning's scripture reading says, we are going to put an end to childish ways. According to theologian John Westerhoff, this third stage of faith development is all about our searching. And not because all of the rituals or the relationships that are part of the first two stages are inadequate, but simply because those first two stages prompt within us a longing for something more. All the answers that are generally given in the first two stages of faith, they suddenly begin begging us to consider their questions, which oftentimes we've never really done. We begin wondering where all of these questions of faith came from, what they're attempting to answer. Are they the same questions we are asking today? We begin wondering what purposes all of the rituals really have within them, whether or not our beliefs still make reasonable and rational sense. And so we begin this searching. We begin reflecting on what we truly believe. Now, as I said earlier, for some, this reflective and searching attitude may begin to develop earlier than midlife, But for others, the questioning might come a little later. Sadly, again, as I've already indicated, for far too many, this stage of faith never really becomes some people's reality. And when that happens, faith becomes extremely rigid, judgmental, and legalistic. And the worldview of those trapped in this place of spiritual childhood never allows room for new or fresh beliefs and perspectives. Last week's closing hymn would likely have made such people very uncomfortable. If you were here, you know that it was Tom Troger's Source and Sovereign, hymn number 11 in our hymnal. Each verse of that hymn ends with the phrase, "May the church at prayer recall that no single holy name, but the truth behind them all is the God whom we proclaim." People who've not yet moved to this third stage of faith would likely have problems with that kind of theology. And if they happen to be with us in worship today, they will likely have problems with our closing hymn as well this morning, Tom Troger's other hymn. Pay attention. Pay attention to what your heart truly believes about some of the most important questions of our faith. And ask yourself whether or not you truly are willing to open yourself up to new ways of thinking and talking about God, to fresh concepts and ideas about God, about life, about this community we call the church, because that can sometimes be very troubling to many people. And when that is the case, we become stalled and stunted in our faith development. I have very distinct memories of getting into bed one night after a small group meeting, quite a few years ago now, where I had just casually mentioned to our group, with my wife present, that I was beginning to question the whole idea of the virgin birth. Well, when we got into bed that night, Shan was literally crying over my comment, wondering what on earth was happening to her pastor husband. Now, we both laugh about it today because Shan still doesn't like anyone messing with her Christmas. But more than that, my questioning something that remains so central to the life of so many was extremely problematic for her. And at the time, she just wasn't quite sure what to do with it. Now, today, we both wonder what took us so long. Why were we both so fearful of simply asking questions, opening ourselves up to the possibility that perhaps it was really okay to begin questioning things that were taught when we were children, and perhaps even coming up with different answers? What took us so long to discover that such questioning is really a necessary part of this journey, and that blind obedience? Well, what took us so long to realize that blind obedience is never admirable or faithful? I've shared this before, but I can remember asking questions about my faith as far back as high school, and having people that I loved and respected tell me to stop intellectualizing all the things of God, as if being logical, reasonable, rational, as if they were something to be feared or to be avoided, or worse yet, that doing that would make God love me any less. Friends, searching, asking big questions, learning to think deeply about these issues, all of that should be the goal of any healthy and whole child of God. It should never be something to fear. And it's what this third stage of faith is all about. It's what putting away childish things is all about. In this morning's reading from 1 Corinthians 13, we're so often distracted by all the poetry about love that we miss the growing up part of the chapter. Now, unfortunately, growing up and asking questions does not necessarily mean that we're going to find answers. And so the real beauty of this stage of faith involves learning to become comfortable living with mystery. It's about finding rest, a home, with things that we will never fully understand or be able to fully explain. Because life is just full of unanswerable questions. And we can either find contentment in beauty and that reality, or we can find fear and frustration in it. The choice is ours to make. This, church, this is the tension in which we need to become comfortable living, where we're searching and moving and growing, but we're never quite arriving, where we're believing and we're trusting, but where we're also dealing with doubt and uncertainty. For those realities, they so often exist right alongside of each other. Now, fortunately, God blesses us with all kinds of things to sustain us through these times. And for me, it has been authors, friends and colleagues, members of the various churches that I've served, and yes, even music. In 1988, Amy Grant's song Lead Me On from her album by the same name was released, and it became one of her most popular songs ever. It's a song that acknowledges the sins of slavery and the Holocaust, and is really like a prayer asking God to lead us on, to take us further in these journeys, away from the selfish sins of our past, towards a deliverance where hurts are healed and where wrongs are righted. Then a few years later, she released Turn This World Around on her Behind the Eyes album, which is also a song about these journeys we're on. It's a song about growth and change and finding shelter in the storms of life. It's about not rejecting the world or the things of faith, but actually changing them, seeking to change them for the better. But when it comes to learning to embrace this third stage of faith and becoming comfortable with all the mysteries and uncertainties of life, no song has spoken to my soul more than Amy Grant's Somewhere Down the Road. And as I've done for the past couple of weeks, I encourage you, when this sermon ends, to Google it and to listen to it and to pay attention to her powerful words. So much pain and no good reason why. You've cried until the tears run dry. Why does it go this way? Yesterday I thought I'd seen it all. Now I see that learning never ends. And somewhere down the road, there will be answers to our questions. A couple of months ago, while Shan and I were out for a hike in Rock Creek Park, I came to the conclusion that life is sometimes like a big hike, a hard hike, one that has you breathless and panting, one that makes it impossible for you to have any kind of significant conversation because you are just so out of breath. You can't talk until the end, when you can finally breathe. Sometimes that's what life is like. We can't explain the why. Right now, we're just a little too out of breath. We need to just wait. We need to be patient until the end. You know what I'm talking about. I know you do. How many times have we all asked those questions that just do not have answers? At least not ones that work. At least not ones that satisfy the longings of our heart. Cancer? Really? Me? Why, God? Why me? Why am I so unhappy at work, in my marriage, at school? Why me, God? Why is all this happening to me? I have a dear friend dealing with all of the issues that come with being bipolar. He's my age, and over the past 4 years, he's lost his home and his family. He has no work, and he is just so depressed that just getting up off the couch every morning is a challenge for him. We've been seeing each other almost every week now, and he keeps asking me, Bob, how did I get here? How have I wound up in this place? And although it breaks my heart, I just have no answers for him. I have no good answers to give, at least not ones that are going to work. Because the reality is there just are no answers. He has other Christian friends who keep telling him that God is in charge and that the Spirit orders our steps and that Jesus suffered so that he wouldn't have to. But all of those ridiculous answers, in spite of his other friends' best intentions, those simplistic and patronizing forms of spiritual bypassing accomplish nothing except to make my friend more confused, more frustrated, at times even angry. The bottom line is that, as this morning's reading makes clear, for now, we know only in part. Someday, one day, the partial will come to an end, but as for now, we see only a reflection. Or as some translations put it, as in a glass, dimly. One day we will see face to face, but now we know only in part. Then we will know fully, but that is then. And it is somewhere down the road. And only when that then becomes a reality will there ever be answers to our questions. Friends, life and faith, they're both journeys. And even though they can be oh so challenging at times, all of us can get to that place where even though they are hard, we can celebrate and rejoice. So wherever you are on your journey, keep going. Do your best to wake up each day to a new dawn, eager to face whatever might lie ahead with grace, with patience, and with hope. Because somewhere down the road, there will be answers to all of our questions. And somewhere down the road, mighty arms will be reaching for us. And those arms have everything we need. Friends, have a great week, and I'll look forward to seeing you right back here next Sunday morning. Until then, and always, peace.